Looking for your dealer, sweetheart? Officer Paul Haynes's shadow fell across the black woman sitting in the Honda Civic. His hand rested on his taser as he circled her car outside the municipal courthouse. This ain't the welfare office. Cassandra Jakes kept both hands visible on the steering wheel. Her voice was steady, too steady. I'm here for work, officer. Haynes laughed, sharp and cruel. Right, and what work would that be? The corner of 5th Street? His partner, Josh Rogers, was already at the trunk. Pop it open. Let's see what you're hiding back here. Probably stolen merchandise. The woman didn't move, didn't flinch. That unnatural calm that made Haynes's jaw clench. I said pop the trunk. Rogers slammed his fist on the metal. Or we do this the hard way. Out of the car, now. Haynes yanked the door open. Hands where I can see them. Rogers grinned, unclipping his handcuffs. Bet she's here to see her baby daddy in lockup. They always dress up for court visits. Cassandra stepped out slowly. Her suit was worn, but pressed. Her briefcase leather and professional. Still, Rogers circled her like prey. You people always think you can just show up anywhere, he muttered loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. But the woman's eyes found the security camera mounted above the entrance. A small, knowing smile played at her lips. Through the courthouse glass doors, an elderly clerk burst outside, her face white with panic. Wait! She screamed, running toward them. Stop! You don't know what you're doing. Haynes laughed louder. Lady, we know exactly what we're doing. Keeping criminals off courthouse property. But why was the clerk so terrified? And why did the handcuffed woman look so unafraid? If this makes your blood boil, stay with it. Justice needs witnesses. If what these officers did makes your blood boil, don't just watch. Take action. Hit that subscribe button right now. Because every subscriber is a witness we can reach with the next story. Every notification is a reminder that injustice is still happening and that you have the power to expose it. Then drop a comment telling us where you're listening from. Now, let's dive into today's story. 30 minutes earlier, Cassandra Jakes had parked in the same spot every Tuesday and Thursday for 3 years. Judge's parking, clearly marked. But the sign meant nothing when your face told the wrong story. She gathered her briefcase, weathered but dignified, and headed toward the courthouse entrance. A catering van blocked the judge's entrance today. She'd have to use the public door. The metal detector beeped. The security guard was new. Young, white. His eyes had already judged her. Ma'am, I need to search your bag. Not a request. Cassandra opened her briefcase without protest. Law books, case files, reading glasses, the tools of her trade. His fingers lingered on every item, suspicious of pages and leather. What's your business here? I work here. Doing what exactly? The question dripped with doubt. Behind them, 3 white lawyers in $1,000 suits breezed through security without a second glance. Their skin matched the marble walls. Their belonging was assumed. I'm expected in courtroom 2A, Cassandra said calmly. As a defendant? The words hung in the air like an accusation. Rosa, the elderly courthouse clerk, emerged from the elevator. 25 years she'd worked these halls. She knew every judge, every lawyer, every face that belonged. Her eyes widened when she saw Cassandra surrounded. What's going on here? Rosa's voice carried the authority of decades. Ma'am, please step back. The guard's hand moved to his radio. We have a potential security situation. Security situation? Rosa's face flushed. Do you know who? I said step back. His finger pressed the call button. I need police backup at the main entrance. Suspicious individual refusing to comply. Cassandra stood perfectly still. She'd learned this dance before. As a public defender watching her clients humiliated. As a prosecutor fighting a system that saw color before credentials. And now, even in the robe she wore upstairs, the moment she took it off, she was just another threat. Through the glass doors, 2 patrol cars pulled up fast. Officers Haynes and Rogers climbed out, already reaching for their equipment. What have we got? Haynes strutted through the entrance, handcuffs already unclipped. The security guard pointed. Won't properly identify herself. Claims she works here. Haynes's eyes swept over Cassandra. Discount suit, natural hair, black skin. His assessment took exactly 2 seconds. All right, let's take this outside. Not a suggestion. Officers, I have identification. Outside. Haynes grabbed her arm. Rogers took the other. They marched her through the parting crowd, past the carved words above the entrance. Equal justice under law. Words that had mocked people like her for generations. Past the teenagers on a field trip to learn about justice. Past the lawyers who looked away. Past the security cameras that would capture everything. Into the parking lot where phones began to rise. Where witnesses began to record. Where humiliation would unfold in broad daylight. Because in America, some people had to prove they belonged. Every single day. The sun caught something in her briefcase as they threw it on the ground. Something gold. Something that would soon shatter their world. But first, there would be laughter. First, there would be blood. First, there would be the cold bite of metal on her wrists. And through it all, Cassandra Jakes would smile. Because she knew something they didn't. The cameras were recording. And in 2 hours, she'd be wearing a very different uniform. Hands on the hood. Spread your legs. Haynes shoved Cassandra against her own Honda. The metal was cold through her thin blazer. A crowd had gathered in seconds. Courthouse employees on smoke breaks. Citizens waiting for hearings. That high school civics class. Clipboards forgotten. Phones raised instead. They all had front row seats to something their textbooks would never explain. Please, Cassandra said quietly, her voice carrying across the parking lot. This is unnecessary. You threatening me? Haynes's knee pressed into her back, pinning her against the car. Josh, you hear this? She's threatening a police officer. Rogers moved closer, grinning. Sure did, Paul. Better add resisting arrest to the charges. What charges? Someone from the crowd called out. Trespassing. Suspicious behavior. Haynes didn't even look up. Probably got warrants, too. They usually do. The phones multiplied. 10 became 20. 20 became 30. Modern witnesses documenting everything in high definition. On your knees. Haynes yanked Cassandra upright just to shove her downward. I said knees. Now. Cassandra's knees hit the asphalt hard. The impact echoed like a judge's gavel. Her skirt tore at the hem. Blood began seeping through the fabric, dark against the gray polyester. Still, she kept her hands visible. Her movements deliberate and slow. She'd seen the news. She knew what happened when black women moved too quickly around frightened men with badges. Look at her, Haynes announced to his audience, voice full of performance. Another one who thinks she's special, thinks the rules don't apply. A young officer, Martinez according to her nameplate, shifted uncomfortably near the squad car. Sarge, maybe we should just check her ID. She's not resisting. Martinez, shut it. Rogers cut her off without looking. You're too soft. That's your problem. I'm just saying, there are cameras. Good. Let them record. Let them see what happens when people don't respect law enforcement. The civics teacher tried to usher her students away, but they wouldn't move, couldn't move. This wasn't justice. This was the lesson their textbooks conveniently skipped. You know what your problem is? Roger circled Cassandra like a predator stalking wounded prey. You people always forget your place. Always trying to act like you belong in places you don't. The crowd gasped. Someone's phone slipped, clattered on concrete. A woman in a business suit stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. This is wrong. She wasn't doing anything. She was just sitting in her car. Ma'am, back up. Haynes pointed at her without taking his eyes off Cassandra. Back up right now, or you'll be next in cuffs. The woman hesitated, looked at her phone recording, then stepped back. But she kept filming. They all kept filming. Through the crowd, Rosa pushed forward, breathless from running inside and back out again. She'd found courthouse security. She'd found anyone who would listen. But she was too late. Officers, stop! Rosa's voice cracked with desperation. You're making a terrible mistake. A terrible lady. I already told you to stay back. Rogers moved to intercept her, his hand on his pepper spray. This is official police business. Step back, or you're obstructing. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Haynes pulled out his handcuffs, letting them dangle in front of Cassandra's face. You know what these are? These are reality. These are where your little act ends. The metal glinted in the morning sun. The same sun that made the gold letters above the courthouse entrance shine. Equal justice under law. Cassandra finally looked up. Not at Haynes, not at Rogers. At the nearest camera phone, held by a teenage girl with braids and tears streaming down her face. When Cassandra spoke, her voice was clear, steady, meant for the recording that would outlive this moment. I have the right to remain silent, she said, each word deliberate. And I choose to exercise that right. The silence that followed was profound. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then Haynes laughed, loud and mocking. Oh, she knows her rights. Josh, she knows her rights. Must have been arrested before. They all have records. Probably got a sheet as long as my arm, Rogers agreed, moving behind Cassandra with the handcuffs ready. Let me guess. Shoplifting, assault, prostitution. Maybe all three, Haynes suggested to more laughter. The metallic click of the first cuff closing around Cassandra's wrist echoed across the parking lot. Then the second. Too tight. Always too tight. The metal bit into her skin, cutting off circulation. There we go. Haynes hauled her to her feet, deliberately rough. Now you look like you belong. Now you look right. The laughter between the two officers was the sound of power unchecked, the sound of cruelty normalized, the sound that had echoed through generations of people who believed their badges made them gods. Rosa made one final desperate attempt. Her name is Cassandra Jakes. She's... But Haynes's radio crackled, drowning out her words. Unit 47, what's your status? Got a trespasser in custody, Haynes responded, his hand tight on Cassandra's arm. Bringing her in for processing. Copy that. They started dragging Cassandra toward the squad car. Her torn skirt, her bleeding knees, her dignity intact despite everything they were doing to destroy it. The teenage girl with the camera was sobbing now, but she kept recording, kept witnessing, kept creating the evidence that would matter later. Wait! Another voice. A man in a courthouse security uniform running from the building. Wait! You can't... Another one, Rogers muttered. What is it with these people today? But they didn't wait. They shoved Cassandra toward the car, her shoulder hitting the door frame hard enough to make several people in the crowd cry out. And through it all, Cassandra Jakes stayed silent. Because in 2 hours, she wouldn't need words. She'd have a gavel. 2 hours felt like 2 lifetimes. Cassandra sat in the holding cell, still handcuffed, still bleeding. They'd processed her like any other criminal. Fingerprints, mugshot, property confiscated. Her briefcase sat somewhere in evidence, full of case files they hadn't bothered to read. The holding cell smelled of desperation and disinfectant. 3 other women shared the space, 2 Latina, 1 white with track marks on her arms. They all stared at Cassandra's torn suit with knowing eyes. "What did they get you for?" the white woman asked. "Existing," Cassandra replied. The woman nodded, like that made perfect sense. Upstairs, courtroom 2A was filling. The bailiff checked his watch nervously. The judge was late. Never late. Judge Cassandra Jakes ran her courtroom like clockwork, 10 a.m. sharp every Tuesday and Thursday. In the gallery sat officers Paul Haynes and Josh Rogers, summoned for a preliminary hearing on an excessive force complaint from 3 months prior. Different case, different victim, same pattern. They sat confidently, uniforms pressed, badges gleaming. They'd been through this before. Complaints always disappeared. Witnesses always recanted. The system protected its own. "All rise," the bailiff called out uncertainly. "For the Honorable." The chamber doors opened. Cassandra Jakes walked in. Black judicial robe flowing, gold medallion of office catching the light. Bandaged knees visible beneath the hem with each step. Bruised wrists where handcuffs had bitten deep. The courtroom didn't just go silent, it stopped breathing. Haynes's face drained of color, going from confident tan to corpse white in seconds. Rogers actually stood up, knees knocking, as if his body was preparing to run even though his brain hadn't caught up. "Sit down, Officer Rogers." Cassandra's voice filled every corner of the courtroom with quiet authority. "You too, Officer Haynes. We have much to discuss." The gallery held 50 people. Defense attorneys who'd watched her humiliation in the parking lot. Prosecutors who'd stood silent. The civics class teacher and her students, cameras still rolling. Rosa clutching a stack of documents. Martinez, the young officer, sitting apart from her colleagues, her badge already removed from her uniform. Everyone who'd witnessed. Everyone who'd filmed. Everyone who'd known. But Haynes found his voice, though it cracked. "Your Honor, we didn't know?" Cassandra settled into her chair, the leather creaking with familiar comfort. "Didn't know I was a judge, or didn't know I was a human being worthy of basic dignity?" She let the question hang. Rogers opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came. "Bailiff," Cassandra said calmly, arranging papers on her bench with deliberate care. "Please bring me the incident reports from this morning, all of them, including the arrest that occurred in our parking lot approximately 2 hours ago." The bailiff's hands shook as he gathered the files. "Your Honor," Haynes tried again, desperation creeping into his voice. "There's been a misunderstanding. A terrible misunderstanding. If you'd known, you would have treated me differently." Cassandra looked directly at him. "That's precisely the problem, Officer Haynes. Justice shouldn't require a robe. Humanity shouldn't require a title." She opened her laptop, turned it toward the courtroom screen. "Now, let me show you what happens when judges do their homework." The screen flickered to life, and Paul Haynes' world began to crumble. The courtroom screen filled with video, not just from today, dash cam footage, security recordings, body camera files that had mysteriously never made it into official reports. "Exhibit A," Cassandra narrated, her voice steady as steel. "Officer Haynes, traffic stop, March 15th. Black female driver, age 24, registered nurse, leaving night shift." The video played, Haynes's voice clear as day. "License and registration, and let me see what you're hiding in that purse. Nurses make good money, probably buying drugs." The courtroom murmured. Several jurors in the gallery for other cases leaned forward. "Exhibit B, Officer Rogers, April 3rd. Latina woman, age 31, attorney, parked outside this courthouse." Rogers on screen, circling the car. "What cartel you running errands for? Don't lie. I can smell illegals." The woman had been a prosecutor. In this building. Exhibit C through Q. Cassandra clicked through 15 more stops. All women of color. All near the courthouse. All released without charges after degrading searches and questions. "Your Honor," Rogers stammered. "Those were legitimate." "Legitimate?" Cassandra's voice could have cut glass. 17 traffic stops in 4 months. 17 women of color. 0 tickets issued. 0 arrests made. Yet somehow all legitimate police work. She clicked again. New image. A spreadsheet. "I've been documenting the pattern. Call it a hobby. Call it survival. Every complaint filed against you both. Every witness statement. Every dash cam that mysteriously malfunctioned." Her eyes found the police union president, Frank Morrison, sweating in the back row. Every investigation that was buried before it began. Morrison shifted in his seat, suddenly very interested in his shoes. "Objection!" Haynes found some courage in desperation. "This is a preliminary hearing for a different case. This is prejudicial." "You're absolutely right, Officer Haynes." Cassandra smiled without warmth. "This was scheduled as a preliminary hearing, but given this morning's events, I'm expanding the scope. Bailiff, please note that I'm formally recusing myself as the presiding judge due to personal involvement." She paused, letting that sink in. "However, before I step down from this particular case, I'm exercising my authority to forward all evidence to the district attorney for immediate criminal investigation. I'm also recommending a federal civil rights inquiry." The DA, Sarah Chen, stood in the gallery. "Your Honor, my office is prepared to pursue maximum charges." "Thank you, Counselor Chen." Cassandra clicked to a new video. This morning, the parking lot. Everything in high definition from multiple angles. But first, let's discuss today's events. Officer Haynes, Officer Rogers, you assaulted a sitting judge. You violated your oath. You dishonored your badges. The video played. The laughter. The mockery. The blood on her knees. The too tight handcuffs. Rogers' voice. "Baby daddy in a lockup." The civics class teacher was crying openly. Her students watched with the solemn attention of people witnessing history. "But worse than assaulting me," Cassandra continued, her voice dropping to something more dangerous. "You've done this before. To how many others who didn't have robes, who didn't have titles, who couldn't fight back?" She stood pulling up her sleeves. Old scars lined her forearms. 1995. My first year as a public defender. Officers thought I was breaking into my own car. She pointed to her shoulder. 2001. Random stop while jogging in my own neighborhood. I just passed the bar. She touched her ribs. 2008. Thrown against a wall during a random courthouse security check. I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. The courtroom was absolutely silent. My daughter was 7 when she watched me handcuffed during a traffic stop. She asked why being a lawyer didn't protect me. Cassandra's voice finally cracked. I didn't have an answer then, but I have one now. She straightened her robe. Because the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, and that ends today. Haynes was shaking. Rogers had his head in his hands. The evidence shows a pattern of abuse spanning years. The evidence shows supervisors who looked away, union officials who buried complaints, a system that protected predators and punished victims. She looked directly at Morrison. Page 47, Section 3 of your union contract. All protections void when officers commit felonies under color of law. I suggest you read your own agreements, Mr. Morrison, because Officers Haynes and Rogers just committed several. Morrison's face went gray. Cassandra gathered her files. This hearing is adjourned. Officers Haynes and Rogers, you're both suspended without pay pending criminal investigation. Bailiff, please escort them from the courthouse. You can't do this, Haynes exploded. The union, Cassandra interrupted, will be very interested in the federal lawsuit that's coming. The one where you cost this city millions. The one with your names on it. As bailiffs moved forward, Martinez stood. The young officer who'd questioned the arrest, who'd removed her own badge 2 hours ago. Your Honor, Martinez said quietly, I'm prepared to testify. About everything. No blue wall, no silence. The courtroom erupted. The emergency session convened in the courthouse conference room within hours. Mayor Patricia Williams sat at one end of the long table, Police Chief Robert Hayes at the other. Between them, District Attorney Sarah Chen, Union President Frank Morrison, and 3 Civilian Oversight Committee members who'd never had real power until today. At the head of the table, Judge Cassandra Jakes. Changed from her robe into a fresh suit, but the bandages on her knees remained visible. A reminder, a warning. Gentlemen, Madam Mayor. Cassandra opened a thick folder. We have a cancer in this department. Today we cut it out. Morrison leaned forward aggressively. Judge, with all due respect, while we regret this morning's incident, Cassandra's voice could have frozen fire. Is that what we're calling assault on a sitting judge? False imprisonment? Civil rights violations? She clicked her laptop. The conference room screen filled with footage, not just from today, but months of documented abuse. Black women thrown against walls, Latina teenagers surrounded by squad cars, Asian families subjected to random searches. 17 months of footage, Cassandra said, all involving Officers Haynes and Rogers, all covered up by your union, Mr. Morrison. Those were investigated by whom? Your hand-picked review board? Cassandra slid documents across the table. I have the real reports, the ones that never made it into official files, the witnesses who were pressured to recant, the victims who were threatened with charges if they complained. Chief Hayes found his voice. Judge Jakes, what exactly are you proposing? Not proposing, implementing. Cassandra stood. Effective immediately. Officers Haynes and Rogers are terminated. No pension, no appeal. You can't. Morrison slammed the table. Page 47, Section 3 of your own contract. All protections void for officers who commit felonies under color of law. Read it, Mr. Morrison. She didn't blink. They assaulted a judge on camera. That's a felony. Multiple felonies, actually. DHN spoke up. My office is prepared to prosecute. Maximum charges. No plea deals. The budget, Hayes began. The budget will prioritize justice over military equipment. Cassandra clicked to a new slide. The department's spending report. Sell 1 armored vehicle. fund a year of civilian oversight, or face the $70 million in lawsuits Officer Haynes alone will cost this city. She let that number sink in. Here are my non-negotiable demands. Mandatory body cameras that cannot be disabled. Ever. Random integrity testing for all officers. 40 hours of implicit bias training. 20 hours of de-escalation. 10 hours on the actual laws you claim to enforce. That's 70 hours per officer, Hayes protested. The manpower. Would you prefer 70 million in lawsuits? Because that's your alternative. The three civilian oversight members straightened. Kesha Williams, a young black civil rights attorney, spoke for the first time. What about officers who witness abuse and stay silent? Mandatory reporting, Cassandra answered. See abuse, report it within 24 hours, or share the punishment. No exceptions. Morrison stood. This is a witch hunt. You're destroying good cops over one mistake. Sit down, Frank. Cassandra's voice dropped dangerously low. Or I'll show everyone in this room what your son, Officer David Morrison, Jr., did to that homeless veteran last month. The incident you personally buried. Morrison sat. His face went white. Civilian oversight with binding authority. Cassandra continued. Not advisory. Binding. Full access to all complaints, all body camera footage, all use of force reports. No exceptions. No delays. She looked directly at Hayes. Starting with your command staff, who ignored 17 complaints. The room erupted. Morrison shouted about union rights. Hayes argued about department morale. The mayor raised her hands for order. Cassandra simply waited. Then she played one final video. Today's arrest. Full footage. The laughter. The blood. The humiliation. A federal judge in handcuffs while officers mocked her. This is your system, Cassandra said quietly when it ended. Working exactly as designed. Protecting itself instead of citizens. The room fell silent. So here's your choice. Real reform, starting today. Or I take this federal. Civil rights violations. FBI investigation. Department of Justice consent decree. Your entire police force under federal control for the next decade. You're bluffing, Morrison said weakly. Cassandra smiled. It wasn't warm. Frank, I've already called the U.S. attorney. She's very interested, especially in cases caught on camera, from multiple angles, by 30 witnesses. One by one, the fight went out of them. Mayor Williams stood. I move to adopt all of Judge Jakes' reforms, effective immediately. Seconded, Chen added. Hands rose. Even Hayes, seeing the inevitable, voted yes. Motion carried. The mayor turned to Cassandra. What do you need from my office? Accountability. Real accountability. Not suspensions with pay. Not transfers to other precincts. Criminal charges. Federal oversight. And a message that this city protects all its citizens. Not just the ones who look like judges. 6 months later, the courthouse steps had been transformed. Where Cassandra bled, children now drew with chalk. Bright flowers, rainbows, words like justice and equality in wobbly letters. Where she'd been humiliated, a community gathered to heal. Judge Jakes, a young voice called out. Cassandra turned from the podium being assembled. Maya Rodriguez, the 16-year-old who'd filmed everything, who'd shouted, "This is wrong," while adults stayed silent, stood with her mother. Her eyes sparkled with something that looked like hope. Yes, Maya. My mom wanted to thank you. Maya's mother stepped forward, tears already falling. My brother. He was stopped by Officer Haynes last year. He never told us what happened. Too ashamed. But after your case, he finally talked about it. Cassandra took the woman's hands. How is he? In therapy, getting better. And he's not ashamed anymore. Because of you. Across the plaza, something unexpected was happening. Officer Martinez, former Officer Martinez, was serving food at a community table. She'd resigned from the force the day of Cassandra's arrest, enrolled in law school at night, and spent her days volunteering with at-risk youth. "Judge," Martinez called out, "the barbecue's ready." Cassandra made her way over, the crowd parting respectfully but not fearfully. That was the difference. Respect born from justice, not fear born from power. "How's law school?" Cassandra asked. "Hard, humbling." Martinez handed her a plate. "I spent 6 years with a badge I didn't deserve. Now I'm trying to earn the right to wear a different one." Chief Hayes appeared, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes. The voters had spoken. New leadership was coming. But Hayes had asked to speak today. "Judge Jakes," he began, voice cracking, "I've been a cop for 28 years. I thought I was one of the good ones." The crowd went quiet. "I wasn't." Hayes's tears fell freely. "I was just better at hiding, at looking away, at explaining why nothing could change." An elderly black man in the crowd spoke up. "We know, Chief. We've always known." Hayes nodded. "I let Haynes terrorize citizens for years. Let Rogers mock Payne. Let Morrison bury complaints because it was easier than fighting the system I helped build." "So what will you do?" Cassandra asked formally. "Apologies are words. Justice requires action." Hayes straightened. "I'm testifying. Against Haynes. Against Rogers. Against the entire system I protected. No blue wall. No silence. Everything I know. On record." The plaza erupted. This was unprecedented. A police chief breaking the code. Rosa appeared at Cassandra's elbow, 25 years of service, and she'd never looked prouder. "Your Honor, it's time." Cassandra took the podium. The crowd, black and white, young and old, powerful and powerless, turned to listen. 6 months ago, I was arrested for existing while black." Her voice carried without amplification. "Today, Officer Martinez serves our community. Chief Hayes chooses truth over silence. Our children draw with chalk where I bled. That's progress." Cheers rose, but Cassandra raised her hand. "But progress isn't enough. Maya here," she gestured to the teenager, "shouldn't need my badge to walk safely through her neighborhood. Her brother shouldn't need video evidence to be believed. Her mother shouldn't live in fear every time her children leave the house." She looked across the plaza at the courthouse, at the parking lot, at the people who'd stood witness. Justice means every officer trained to see humanity before color. Every complaint investigated by civilians. Every abuse prosecuted. Every citizen protected, not profiled. The crowd nodded, some crying. "Most of all," Cassandra's voice softened, "justice means Maya's generation grows up in a world where this gathering isn't necessary, where equality isn't remarkable, where a black woman in a worn suit is just a woman going to work." Maya broke from her mother and ran to the podium. Cassandra lifted her up. The girl whispered something that made Cassandra smile. Really smile. For the first time in months. "Maya wants to be a judge," Cassandra announced. "Not to fight injustice, but because there won't be any left to fight." The plaza erupted. Hope replacing fear. Community conquering division. Later, as the sun set, Cassandra drove past the parking spot where she'd bled. A small plaque had been installed. "On this spot, injustice was exposed. May we never need such revelation again." Her phone buzzed. Text from Maya. "Studying hard. See you in court someday, as equals." Cassandra typed back. "Looking forward to it, counselor." The trials would continue tomorrow. Haynes and Rogers, both facing federal charges. Morrison under investigation. Hayes's testimony reshaping the department. The work wasn't finished. It never would be. But today, a girl who looked like Cassandra could dream of justice without scars, and that was worth fighting for. Share this story. Your camera is a weapon against injustice. Your voice matters. Stand witness. Speak truth. Change the world. One recording at a time.